As they loaded up, Elena checked the weapons of her vehicle crew. Just making sure they work, she explained when Garcia looked at her funny. Her hands moved over his rifle with surprising skill, adjusting the scope without even thinking about it. "How'd you know to do that?" Garcia asked. "Lucky guess." The convoy rolled out at 6 in the morning. 4 massive armored trucks, each weighing 30 tons. Elena sat in the back of Vehicle 4, counting her breaths. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. A trick to calm anxiety, or prepare for a difficult shot. Baghdad rolled past the windows. Burned cars pushed to the roadside. Holes from old bombs filled with dirt. The city felt empty, which every soldier knew meant trouble. When locals disappeared, it meant they knew something bad was coming. "We should turn back," Elena said suddenly. "Who said that?" Bennett's voice crackled over the radio from the lead truck. "You're scared, medic," Garcia replied. "She's already freaking out." Laughter filled the radio channel. But Elena wasn't panicking. She was reading the environment like a book. The pattern of burned cars, the placement of the craters, the angles from surrounding buildings. It all screamed ambush. They approached Underpass Checkpoint 3, a concrete bridge that created a perfect trap. Elena's breathing shifted. She started counting in Russian, so quiet nobody else could hear. Her hands moved without thinking, checking magazines, preparing for something her mind was still denying. "Stop the convoy." The words tore from her throat. She grabbed the radio, breaking all the rules. "Bomb pattern, right side, white container." Bennett's response was instant and furious. "Shut up. I'm in charge here, not." The explosion cut him off. But it wasn't where Elena warned. It was behind them, sealing their escape route. Then the world erupted into chaos. Machine guns opened fire from 3 buildings at once. Rockets screamed from rooftops. The lead vehicle took a direct hit and flipped onto its side. The radio hissed with a voice that froze Elena's blood. Perfect English with a British accent. "Hello, Ghost. 2 years I've waited. 2 years since you let my son die. Let's finish what we started in Afghanistan." Everyone heard it. In the sudden silence, Bennett's voice, weak but alive from the overturned truck, asked the question on everyone's mind. "Who is Ghost?" Elena closed her eyes. Her hands stopped shaking. When she opened them, something had shifted. The frightened medic was gone. Mitchell's vehicle exploded. Elena watched him thrown against the armored wall, his shoulder coming apart. Blood streamed from his head. "Doc, help!" he screamed. Private Jackson, only 19 years old, was hit by shrapnel in his stomach. Blood sprayed everywhere inside the vehicle. Elena reached for a medical bag, then froze. To help them, she'd have to expose herself to the sniper. The shooter was waiting for exactly that. Anderson's voice cut through the chaos. "Elena, listen. Your sister's school in Colorado. He has people there today. You know what he wants." Her sister, 16 years old, innocent of everything, now a target because of Elena's past. Elena's hands steadied completely. She took one deep breath, the kind she used to take before impossible shots. When her eyes opened, everything had shifted. She dropped the medical bag. Her hands reached for the M4 rifle. The gun came up to her shoulder in one smooth motion. Through the scope, the world narrowed to math and wind. 387 meters to the sniper. Light crosswind from the east. Target partially hidden behind concrete. Crack. The enemy rifle tumbled from the 4th-floor window, followed by a body. The convoy members who were still conscious stared in shocked silence. Their terrified medic had just made a shot most trained snipers couldn't make. But Elena wasn't done. She moved like water, flowing out of the vehicle with perfect balance. "Mitchell, shift left, cover sector 2. Her voice was different now. Command voice. The voice of someone used to being obeyed in life or death situations. She moved between covered positions like a ghost, taking out targets with mechanical precision. 12 hostiles in 45 seconds. Each shot perfect. No wasted bullets. No hosetashchen. Then she sprinted to Bennett's position. He was dying. Shoulder wound had hit a major artery. Maybe 3 minutes before he bled out. Elena dropped to her knees, and suddenly she was a medic again. The rifle fell forgotten as her hands worked to save the life of the man who tormented her. Stay with me, James, she said, applying pressure while reaching for bandages. You're too stubborn to die now. Bennett's eyes focused on her face, tears mixing with blood. I'm sorry. We didn't know. Shut up and let me work. The radio crackled with Anderson's voice. Authentication. Reaper. 4. 4. Confirm. Ghost 22. Elena replied while working. CIA Special Activities Division. 47 confirmed eliminations. Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria. Everyone heard. Everyone now knew their coward medic was something else entirely. But Elena wasn't listening. She worked frantically to save lives. Bennett first, then Jackson, then Mitchell. Her hands moved with the same precision they'd shown with the rifle, but now saving instead of taking. As she worked, she talked. Maybe from stress. Maybe needing to confess. Falcon was my spotter. Afghanistan, 2 years ago. Partners. The best. His son, 8 years old, got recruited by the group we were targeting. They put a bomb vest on him. I saw the stuffed animal he was carrying. Thought the vest was fake. Told my team to hold fire. Her hands never stopped moving. But Falcon knew. He knew his son knew the vest was real. He took the shot. My 3 teammates moved to shield civilians when it exploded. They died because I hesitated, because I wouldn't shoot a child. And Falcon blames me for making him kill his own son. The crack of gunfire made Elena Carter slam herself against the concrete wall so hard her shoulder would bruise later. Her medical bag hit the ground as she covered her ears, eyes squeezed shut. Bang, bang, bang. Each shot from the firing range felt like it was aimed directly at her heart. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The world narrowed to just that terrible sound that wouldn't stop. Holy smokes, look at her! Sergeant James Bennett's voice boomed across Fort Bragg's practice area. The huge man turned away from his target, grinning at his buddies. Hey, Doc, you know medics stay back during fights, right? You don't need to worry about guns. The whole group started laughing. Staff Sergeant Mitchell pulled out his phone and started recording. I bet she'd faint if I just yelled boom real loud. Elena pressed harder against the wall, wishing she could disappear. Her hand shook as she picked up her medical bag and held it tight against her chest. Nobody noticed the strange scar on her wrist. Nobody saw how her jaw was clenched so tight it hurt. They just saw a scared medic who jumped at every loud noise. What they didn't know was that in exactly 20 minutes, everything would be different. On a dangerous road far from here, they'd finally understand why she acted this way, and why it would save all their lives. Earlier that morning, Elena had woken up at 5:30, soaked in sweat from another bad dream. Afghanistan. Always the same nightmare. She sat up and started counting to 100 like she did every single morning. Then she checked her medical supplies 3 times. Every bandage, every medicine, everything had to be perfect and in the right place. Her hands were shaking again, so she reached into her locker for the small bottle she kept hidden. The doctor had given her pills to help with the shaking and the fear. She swallowed 2 without water and shoved the bottle back under her extra uniforms. Nobody could know about the pills. Under her pillow was a photo she looked at every day. For people in military gear, but their faces were blurred out. She touched each shadowy figure gently. I'm just a medic now, she whispered to the picture. Just a medic. At breakfast, she sat alone in the corner, far from the noisy soldiers. She picked at her eggs, trying to ignore all the loud voices and sudden movements. Everything made her tense up. Slam! Bennett dropped his tray on her table so hard her coffee spilled everywhere. Scared of breakfast too? He laughed. Mitchell appeared next to him and made a gun shape with his fingers. Bang! He shouted right in her face. Elena jumped so hard she knocked over her whole cup. Brown coffee spread across the metal table. Soldiers at nearby tables started filming on their phones, laughing at her reaction. She's more jumpy than a brand new recruit, Mitchell said, shaking his head. Corporal Davis, another medic, watched from across the room. Something about how Elena reacted bothered him. It wasn't normal fear. It was something deeper, like her body remembered something terrible that her mind was trying to forget. Bennett leaned close, his breath hot on Elena's face. 2 weeks, Doc. 2 weeks until we ship out to Iraq. You planning to hide behind your medical bag the whole time? What happens when real bullets start flying? Elena's hands kept shaking as she cleaned up the spilled coffee. She used exactly 3 napkins, folded the same way. Everything had to be controlled and perfect. It was the only way to keep the memories locked away. "Answer me when I'm talking to you," Bennett growled. "Yes, Sergeant," Elena whispered so quietly he could barely hear her. "Yes, what?" "Yes, I understand we leave in 2 weeks." He stood up and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "Everyone, meet our combat medic who's afraid of combat. Maybe we should give her a whistle instead of a rifle. She can blow it when she needs a real soldier to save her." More laughter, more phones recording. Elena kept staring at the table, counting the scratches in the metal. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like the bodies in... No, she was just a medic now. Just a medic. The firing range was required for everyone. Every soldier had to prove they could shoot before going overseas, even medics. Elena tried to be last in line, hoping maybe they'd run out of time. But Bennett grabbed her arm hard and dragged her to the front. "Ladies first, Doc." He pushed an M4 rifle into her hands. "Can't have our medic failing." Though looking at those shaky hands, I'm betting you can't even hold it steady. The weight of the gun, the smell of oil, the cold metal, it all rushed back. Afghanistan. Her old rifle, the smell of smoke and blood, the sound of safety's still on, genius. Bennett's voice cut through her thoughts. "This is unbelievable. Our medic doesn't even know how to use a basic rifle. Hey, Mitchell, come see this." Elena's fingers moved to the safety switch. The movement was automatic, like her hands knew what to do without thinking. She caught herself and made it look clumsy instead. But Davis noticed. For just a second, her hands had moved like an expert. 5 shots, the range instructor called. "Make them count." Elena raised the rifle. Through the sight, the target looked blurry. Not because she couldn't see it clearly, but because she was fighting every instinct in her body. Her feet were too close together. Her weight was all wrong. Her shoulder wasn't positioned right against the gun. Everything was deliberately bad. She fired 5 times. 2 shots hit the center, so perfectly they almost touched each other. The other 3 missed completely. "Lucky shots," Bennett crowed. "Even a broken clock is right twice a day. But 3 complete misses? Pathetic." What he didn't see was how much skill it took to miss that badly on purpose. To fight against every hour of training. Every mission where missing meant dying. Elena had placed those 3 shots exactly where she wanted them, safely into the dirt behind the targets. Days blurred together. Every meal brought new embarrassment. Bennett started throwing food at her, calling it target practice. Her gear kept disappearing or getting broken. They called her weak, useless, dead weight. Elena accepted every insult without complaining. It was her punishment for what happened in Afghanistan, for the choices she made, for the lives she took and the lives she couldn't save. During medical training one afternoon, Elena was showing the class how to stop bleeding on a practice dummy. Thompson interrupted her. "What if the medic gets shot first? Who saves you?" The 30 soldiers turned to watch. They sensed more entertainment coming. "That's why everyone learns basic first aid," Elena replied quietly, continuing to wrap the dummy's arm. "But what if you're under fire?" Bennett insisted. "Let's make this realistic. Mitchell, play some combat sounds on your phone." Mitchell grinned and pulled up an app. Suddenly the training room filled with the sharp crack of gunfire. Elena's hands froze. The sound transported her instantly. Not to a training room at Fort Bragg, but to a destroyed building in Kabul. The smell of blood. The weight of her rifle. A child stepping out of the shadows with something in his hands and her finger on the trigger, and the medical wrap slipped from her numb fingers and clattered to the floor. "She can't even tie a knot." Bennett's laughter filled the room. "This is our combat medic, people. The person who's supposed to save your life when things go bad. Feel confident." A week before they were supposed to leave for Iraq, things got worse. Final combatrid. Last chance to prepare. Elena failed every single exercise. When a fake bomb exploded during training, she froze completely. Just stood in the middle of the field, unable to move, unable to think. Transported back to that moment when everything went wrong. Bennett had to tackle her into cover, screaming in her face. You're going to get someone killed. But the worst was Mitchell's prank. He hid a firecracker in her medical bag, set to explode when she opened it. The bang wasn't loud, but to Elena it might as well have been a real bomb. She screamed and dropped to her knees, hands over her ears. The flashback hit hard. Kabul, iki birinci. The explosion that ended everything. 3 teammates dead. Blood everywhere. Her fault. All her fault because she hesitated, because she saw a child where others saw danger, because she tried to save everyone and ended up saving no one. She curled into a ball in the corner, rocking back and forth, lost in memories that wouldn't stop. The room went silent. Even Bennett looked shocked. In the chaos, her uniform shirt tore. It revealed scars. Not random injuries, but precise patterns. Gunshot wounds in the gaps where body armor wouldn't protect. Wounds that spoke of someone who'd been deliberately targeted by someone who knew exactly where to shoot. Davis knelt beside her, his voice low. Those are torture scars. Lieutenant Colonel Anderson appeared suddenly, clearing the room with a single gesture. As soldiers left, he typed rapidly on his phone. Anyone close enough might have seen the screen. Asset confirmed. Falcon active. The plane touched down in Iraq, and heat slammed into them like opening an oven door. Forward Operating Base Sentinel sat on the edge of Fallujah, surrounded by concrete walls and barbed wire. Dust covered everything. Generators hummed constantly. Far away, explosions rumbled like distant thunder. At 5 in the morning the next day, Captain Morris gathered them for the mission brief. Route Sword, he said, pointing at a map. 7 miles from the international zone to the airport. We're escorting supply trucks. For vehicles, standard formation. Elena was assigned to the last truck with all the medical equipment. Bennett smirked. Safest spot for our nervous medic. You'll be fine back there. Actually, the last vehicle was the most dangerous. Easiest to separate from the group. Easiest to destroy. But Elena said nothing. Medics weren't supposed to understand military tactics.